promise you, Michael.
No! I've been chosen? Altor? Yes, indeed, it is I. And you are not only so worthy of sleep, but the power.
Whoa. We have to say the end.
Get that empty reviews and get him his front!
I have paid you for my assistance.
Right. Mount! Alright, quick one! Fire off, let's go!
Hello everybody, this is your humble host from the future here, blinking in, just to, wish you happy holidays. Wanted to put this one out finally because there was another podcast that got lost to time, similar to the Twin Peaks one due to various life complications. I did get decently far in filming it, but, things got in the way, but needless to say, that, with the mix of Valentine's weekend coming about, I may be a few days late, but still Valentine's Day weekend, and then also our holiday film that has just been posted onto the channel that you can go watch if you haven't seen already, The Holiday Hazards, which was also lost to time for a brief period. Both of these things, drive me to Wong Kar-wai. So, I guess I gave 3 reasons. Just the fact that this was shelved, Valentine's weekend, you can watch something a little romantic, get some romantic suggestions, and then, because my film, believe it or not, I tried to, it was a poor man's drunken Wong Kar-wai attempt, I haven't talked about movies yet for this season of my film review podcast. The first 3 episodes have been about the same show, so I felt like putting this in between some of the Twin Peaks discussions would just kind of diversify things a little bit, because the Twin Peaks series will go for a while. So next up will be Fire Walk with Me and The Missing Pieces, and then after that, I don't know, I'll throw something in between those and The Return. They kind of split it up like this, and to give more time to soak up The Return. But yeah, I will come back after Me from the Past talks to you. I kind of hype up. I'm gonna cut you guys again like I did at the end of the previous episode. I do a little bit of hyping up for the finale section of the video, and I'm not gonna, some of the movies at the latter half of this discussion are movies that everybody's talked about. I can only say so much. And this video, I want to, I'm sure I probably mention it too, but, I kind of just want to go through my feelings on each of these movies, because I feel like they're all deserving of their own full breakdowns, or even the 2 separate trilogies that I define this group of films within, but I do love them all so much that I could yap about them individually for quite a while. So, maybe maybe I'll do that in some time in the future. But for now, here are my brief ramblings on each of the films of Wong Kar-wai's beautiful World of Love. Thank you.
mean, and you know it's kinda lean. It's good, you know, that's not even on your phone at 4 to 3 a.m. when he's getting posted, and it may not be clean. When you know your love is such a series today that's worth to know it's true.
Hello, I'm Empty Film Reviews, and I remember them or review them so you don't have to. And I am here once again to talk about some movies. A little bit of my set is missing. Kind of still figuring out what I'm gonna do here, but you know, don't worry about it. This is the basic setup. At least it was kind of hinted at in some previous episodes and things. But you know, if this is your first time here, my name is Michael Poltorello, aka MPT, aka Empty, and I like to talk about movies. So much so that I go into a daze and sometimes forget if I actually pressed record or not. I did. You can never be too sure. And I'm wearing Geen because we're talking about some very Geen films today. In the title, you can see this is The World of Love, Wong Kar-wai's World of Love. To be more specific, Wong Kar-wai has become one of my favorite filmmakers this decade. Ever since my film journey kind of revamped in 2020 after seeing Park Chan-wook's Old Boy for the first time, and it fueled me with the rage, as that film happens to do for some people, because of the contents of the film, not because it was bad. That's the reaction people have to the 2013 Old Boy. Oh no! Anyway, basically, it despite the rage, I was like, you know, I really kind of need to see what else is happening with this guy's career, as well as the rest of the Vengeance trilogy. I was quite curious, though we will get into all that another time. Yes. Until then, you know, slightly fast forward, and like right around that time, I started trying to get into much more international cinema. That was when I saw my first couple Bergmans, Tarkovskys, oh god, who else? You know, watching some indie British cinema like Performance. I had a few others in my head just a second ago. What the heck? Where'd they go? Some of Inarritu's earlier works, you know, just plenty of stuff all around. The Godard films I've watched some of. Yeah, you know, just kind of seeing what all my favorite filmmakers are, because you know a lot of them are international. And even though I had a bit of a gateway into some Korean cinema with Bong right at the end of the 2010s, or you know, an interest in Japanese media, not just the anime but the music, and that eventually led me towards some film, but not enough. I was watching Miike throughout the 20s. Michelle Hanukkah, that was the name that had lost me for a second. That was another one that I instantly pretty much started watching through. And then, you know, thus where we're now here, 2024, as of the time of recording this anyway. And currently, you know, I'm still on that train. This may be the longest. This may have outlasted my other stretch of film watching, because I tried to watch like a film a day in high school, starting then, right after I was on the album a day tick. So this was when, I was 15, it was the middle of sophomore year, I started doing that. And it was mostly American cinema, but there were a few things mixed in there that weren't that. Like, two of the first films on that early list were Akira and Ghost in the Shell. So again, still anime, but that's not to disrespect that art at all. It's just I had a fairly traditional way of getting into more, live action Japanese cinema. Um, and so, Wong Kar was amongst that group of filmmakers that I was checking out in, what is still the early 20s. But as of these past couple of years, I've rewatched a few of his films quite a number of times. I've savored them, though. I don't usually burst through a director that I love in one go because just of the way I attach myself to art. I'm more likely to do that with a musician and their albums. Like currently I'm doing that for the band Pavement. Shout out to Pavement enjoyers. But even then I'm still kind of taking my time with it a little bit. But filmmakers I especially tend to be kind of slow. Or maybe I'll watch like a group within a succession. I think the only filmmaker I really rushed to start watching all the films of was Lynch, but even when I say rush, it was over the course of a few years. So, but Bong Joon-ho and Park Chan-wook, I would say, would be the two true exceptions, I guess, because them within a year, I'd seen about most of their films. I think the only film between the two of them, or films I haven't seen between the two of them, are Okja, Bong's first film, which he doesn't like, and Park's children's film that he made because all of his films up until then were so fucked that he couldn't show it to his child. I'm a cyborg and that's okay, or I'm not a cyborg and that's okay. Whichever one the correct one is, forgive me. What else? What is the other Park film that I haven't seen yet? JSA. I haven't watched that in full yet, but I have seen some of it, and I look forward to it. Now, to sort of kind of centralize the conversation, I will mostly be focusing on the films that I have the most experience with. It can be kind of hard to spoil some of these films because of the nature of their pacing, the way the plot move. But there are a few that I will stay away from a lot of the elements, the main events, I should say. Mainly Falling Angels, because I think a lot of the satisfaction of that film comes from watching how all the pieces come together. But I still have some words to say about that film. And you can't make a video about Wong Kar-wai and not talk about Fallen Angels. I mean, come on. With that said, and yes, special shout out once again to Daisuke Beppu, who inspired this series originally to begin with. Has been a great voice in my Criterion journey, has exposed me to a lot of really cool films. His Discord is super cool too. Got to hop in there, chat with some people. Everyone's, including him, seemingly very nice. So I really couldn't be happier with that. I think that is kind of like the best payoff of this so far. Well, I almost threw this all over the place. It's the best payoff of this so far for me, easily. Is just kind of, seeing his little fan base growing and kind of finding a cool little online group of moviegoers out of it. Very cool. I'd like to think I have a good bit of friends I could talk about films with, but it never hurts to have a few more. Met a dude in there, a guy with a fairly prominent Letterboxd account. I won't say any more than that, I guess, for his anonymity. But he is a fellow Electric Dragon 80,000 Volts lover. And that film is my blood, my bread, and my butter. Yellow Submarine is the film that crafted me, but Electric Dragon is my spirit film. The film I found, the film I was fated to find, on my movie watching journey. So with that said, with all that said, let's get into it, shall we? So to give a brief sum up to those who are wondering, who is Wong Kar-wai? Wong Kar-wai is a fantastic Hong Kong filmmaker, mainly rose to fame throughout the early 90s, but certainly was very active before that, or at least active enough, it seems, to be making his way up in the underground of films. Oh my god. And, it didn't take long for filmmakers like Tarantino to be in love with the guy's work, because how could you not be? And he, to go back to an earlier term I used, is very much a favorite filmmaker type of guy. He's not too much of a deep cut. It's not a Sogo Ishii case, but he's not a household name. However, he does have his classics. He has his films that even I've been hearing about since I was 16, mainly In the Mood for Love and Chungking Express, and I'd always had an interest to see those. Even Fallen Angels, I think, was probably amongst that group. But mostly In the Mood for Love and Chungking were definitely the ones I was typically hearing about. But when you go, look into these sort of, I guess, conversations that have been had over the years and recently about Wong Kar, it seems like Falling Angels is the people's favorite, and it's hard for me to disagree with that, dissuade away from it, even though Chungking was my favorite for a while, until my most recent rewatch, showing old friend of the channel Ben these films. We're reconnecting, just weren't talking as much the last few years since we were both busy with things, we both moved to different places. But Ben, classic Cuddlesworth Guapo team member, one of the OGs, and it's been great to talk with him about some of these films. I'd love to have him as a guest on the show one day even. There have been a couple of guests I wanted to have, but they'd all have to be Discord guests at this current moment, maybe except for one, and that I just have to figure out how to do that in a decent quality, but I would like to. As there were a few that I even hyped up that I never got to do. I mean, the Ichi video, Half of Why My Heart, was not even fully in that, was because it was originally planned to be a guest podcast with Avery, one of the pretty much the main cameraman of Cuddlesworth Guapo. And Rocky, I never did the Rocky episode because I was supposed to do that with Donald. And these ones will still happen, just when the time is right. And this was actually one I wanted to do for a while, but I'm glad I waited, because I still haven't seen all of his movies. Again, I'm savoring, but I really only could have made this video in the first run, the first season, about the sort of thematic trilogy that starts with Chungking and then goes to Fallen Angels and Happy Together. Also, what I would consider one of my favorite and one of the best trilogies ever made. And then I had seen The Hand, but I didn't see the films that is technically a part of, In the Mood for Love and 2046, at least not for a while. I saw In the Mood for Love, had some feelings about it and things, then eventually saw 2046, had some feelings, and ultimately, that trilogy, I also have some feelings. But what are those feelings? Well, let me tell you. Some feelings that may not shock anyone, but hey, this is just me being honest, talking about some films I love. And, I want to share these movies with people too, because these just are some of the best. I think one of Wong Kar-wai's, obviously one of his greatest talents to anyone who knows his films is his look. Like, they're some of the greatest, best looking films just ever made. He is amazing. So, I haven't seen what I believe is his first film, As Tears Go By, if I'm correct, unless if he made some kind of earlier TV picture, which it's not seeming look he had, excuse me. He was a writer on other pictures for a good bit, but his first picture seems to be As Tears Go By, and I have no current thoughts on that one, but one day perhaps. My first canonical Wong Kar picture here is Days of Being Wild, his 1990 picture. It is not a film that I'm super emotionally connected with, and it also has the least amount of Wong Kar's signature filmmaking style, the changing frame rates, all of the colors, but it has a very cool, young, raw edge to it, and that's what the whole movie is about as well. So the general kind of moody grit is very fair for the mood of the film. It definitely isn't bad. I wouldn't even say it's short of great necessarily. The characters, they just, I was not too emotionally smitten by them. Especially since it's a type of film that I feel like in America was being done a lot, like throughout, I don't know, you could go from the 2000s back really and pick any decade of just like a tough hard guy that all the chicks love, but he's just gotta go his own way. Like sometimes if there's a real heart in it, you can get attached, and there is even a heart in this movie. I think a lot of that is found in Maggie Cheung. And also the choice of dilemma that the main character has, the fact that it's like around his mother and stuff. There's definitely a heart to it. So it's not even that. I think some of it maybe is just that I'm not getting that full Wong Kar flavor with this film. But it's still good. It's still a cool watch, and especially if you like, grittier sort of late 80s kind of films about gangster tough guys. It's a good one to put on, I would say. Maggie Cheung, who doesn't love Maggie Cheung? Lee Story, my God, she's such a little cutie. What a great actress. But no. So for me, right, it basically starts and ends there with The Days of Being Wild. I like how parts of it are shot. I think it's very well acted too, despite not fully attaching to these characters as much as they feel I could. Very well acted. Although again, I'm rambling about Maggie Cheung. Her I felt attached to, and that was probably it, I guess. But I wasn't fully detached from the film. It is, someplace kind of in between. Very much respected the film the whole way, though. And then that pretty much takes me straight to Chungking, his 94 picture. Chungking Express is a fantastic film that is not going to work for everyone because of its flow. Most sort of vignette or anthology films can be that way for people, hit or miss, but it takes a much more interesting approach to this. Chungking Express does with film, the language of film, one of the things I think it's really meant for, or at least one of the things that I think it can do so well above any other art form. I was going to say fart form. Very good. What it can do so well above any other fart form is the fact that a book, you're locked to one perspective. You know, sentence by sentence, even if it's changing, you're still like this perspective and that perspective. You know, you can't. Your eyes, they're as much of a sentence as you can read at once. You can't look at a page and just bing, like instantly get. I mean, if, some prodigies or whatever probably could, but normal layman folk. But film, you can just put a camera in a place, in an area, filled with people, or animals, lack of people, even just objects, and there's countless stories happening at once, at the same time, and you pick them out. Now, chunking isn't quite that abstract, but that is where the idea of the film comes. You're not locked to just like a location the whole time, like a mall, and just like watching all these people go by. But the disjointed nature of who we're following, and the fact that all these people, the real, only true connection between all of these characters is merely the place they go to eat sometimes, or the area they kind of pass through. And I just think that's fucking awesome, and I would love to make a movie of that capacity someday. And I also think it was very wise of them, to have saved the planned third story that they were going to put in Chunking, since it's only made up of two, made that into its own film to really let these two breathe. And also, the film that came of that third story is another masterpiece. But yeah, Chunking, it's got some silly vibes, there is a character who it is very, treated very sillily, that there is one character who is a woman that likes to do very sussy things to a guy, involving stalking and lacing, and it's very much got the mood of haha, isn't she cute? Because it's a movie made in the early 90s, so people didn't give a fuck. And hey, Faye Wong, she's a beautiful woman, so what can I say? Most cute stalker movie ever. The first half doesn't have any stalker shit in it though, so for some people the first half is very enjoyable, and then it kind of goes off, or vice versa. They think the first noir half is kind of boring, and the second sort of rom-commy part is the more entertaining bit. But I get a lot of both, although I think originally I did kind of lean towards the second half just because of how bonkers it is, and I think I still even do a little bit. And the fact that I can watch this movie on repeat and get to that second half where they're playing California Dreamin' 8 million times, and I still love it. Also, something to mention is that my original time watching these films, I saw the newer versions. There are slight differences, mostly aesthetically, that being in the color grading and then occasional music choices that make up the difference in these films. But other than that, I think it's it. Maybe an extra couple seconds of footage here or there, but it's really not much that way in terms of the material. It's very much the look and the presentation. And so I saw these newer versions, which people are very conflicted about because they're green. But I really take to them because of that. I love the 90s to early 2000s, everything is green. like usually an edgy movies thing, but also just kind of art tours like Wong Kar would use green a lot, and various cultures have different significance that they put into green as well, like Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, the Korean film, is very green because green is like, a happy color displaying life and growth, and the mood of that movie very much is not happy. So, it has that very consistent, conflicting nature about it, which is cool. But I just love the green. I love the green color grading on top of the green sets. Like give it to me. People don't complain about it as much with Chungking as a couple of the other ones. And I guess that's mostly because Chungking is actually blue. It's more blue than green. In the newer version anyway. And more of those greens actually come out in the original theatrical version, which I really am going to be battling back and forth between like which one of these is my main preferred watch now, because I really like the looks of both of them, I don't know. It's I'm not adverse to the newer versions at all, though. I think that's what's so great about I don't know, just being able to have that accessibility. The fact that Criterion put those old cuts out there, but there are these new versions that very much are the vision of the filmmaker, but he's allowing the old ones to still exist. He's not deleting the old versions like doing a George Lucas on the original Star Wars. You can still interact with the original cuts and the new ones. And that, to me, really adds to the experience of these films, is pinballing between the two versions. If you like them that much and actually want to do that, I think you should. If you have the Criterion channel, it's one of the only streaming services I've put money towards, just because they're not hacks. So there you go. That's enough for me to be on your side most times. So Chungking, I love it. It is one of my favorite films ever, and it was my favorite Wong Kar-wai, but I have a lot of trouble picking a favorite right now, and these next two are a lot of the reasons as to why. So stay tuned for more nostalgia critic. So actually, one last thing to mention about Chungking before moving on is that, it really just kind of emotionally just does it for me in a lot of ways, right? And I guess idealistically, but not like in an ethics sense, more so that, again, like playing with the idea of the language of film, and the way that I phrased it, place the camera in an area, and it just show us these different perspectives. But Wong describes it as, I think even the tagline says, like, the people who you will bump into. I don't know, I was confusing it with the people you'll meet in my head. But still, it's basically, you imagine all the stories that you just grazed past, in your life, let alone the ones that were just a block away or 2 blocks away. And that type of train of thinking is what a lot of my life has been dictated around, like trips to see family and wondering what's going on in that car, what's going on in that car, what's happening at the house now that we're not there anymore, so I love that it is playing with those ideas, and also I love it when it comes to the emotional factor. I love it as a mood piece, especially the type of melancholy and bittersweetness that it plays with, the passing of time, not just people that brush past you, but potential relationships, opportunities, the ones that you lose along the way, even if you did meet them, things that just can't be helped. And I think it's just so fucking marvelous, genuinely, that is the approach of the film. So, with all that said, now I would like to get into a film by Wong Kar-wai, his following feature, or actually, I think it was his Ashes of Time, is the same year as Chungking. I don't know if it came before or after. It looks like, to me, it would make more sense if it came before, since Chungking and Fallen have that through line, but maybe it didn't. I don't know. And explain me the coffee giving me the hiccups, so I guess I have more. So, Ashes of Time is another one that I haven't seen yet. And I'm really looking forward to that, as well as The Grandmaster, is two, like, swordsman, samurai, fighter type movies. I very much can't wait to see those one day. But for now, we're still within the range of his more down-to-earth movies. This is actually from 95, Fallen Angels. This is the first of his films that is very controversial for the green transfer, but I mean, I don't know, the poster's green. It was always green, wasn't it? Or did he green the poster too? Either way, I think the green works really well for the mood of the film. But it's not just the green that differs in the two cuts. In the newer version, there were scenes that were black and white in the original version that now kind of have that, like, pale photo edge to it, where it's mostly black and white, but then there are a few colors of choice that come through too, quite sharply, opposed to the dull shades that are also coming through beyond black and white. But anyway, I digress. For Fallen Angels, I really don't think there's any footage difference. In Chungking, there was a little bit in terms of some of the crime scheming in the first half. One version has a little more. And then there's a part where the usage of Dreams, of Faye Wong's cover of Dreams by the Cranberries, which is fucking amazing, by the way. I love it just as much as the regular. And the lyrics are changed to fit the mood of the movie, too. It's awesome. There's a part in the original version where it wasn't there, and I'm so used to the new version with the usage of Dreams like 3 times in the movie instead of just twice. And so the one scene where it wasn't there in the theatrical version, I felt like horrified, just because I'm so used to, again, that bright music, and instead of what was really originally there was just like a deep drone. So all that to say that from what I understand, Fallen Angels doesn't have such changes, but maybe it does. Maybe I'm just a dummy head. And, you know, again, I'm going to be ping-ponging between them. I think this one, I maybe prefer the original look. No, that's not even true. If you could put the black and white from the original into the new green version, that's probably my favorite version of this film. But I love the green. Give me more green. Why is everyone hating on the green? The green is a great color, especially in film. Green is like probably the best color in film. I know you fuckers want to say it's red, but it's not. It's green. Green is the movie color. Alright? Now, this one I also said I was going to be kind of the most vague about the events. But if you are someone who, you know, your film perspective is more in the American kind of range, but you've gone to the Scorseses, you've gone to the Tarantinos, you've gone to the Finchers, I think that this should be maybe Days of Being Wild, but I think that this ultimately should be, for those people, the gateway film into Wong Kar. For me, it was Chungking, which is also partly why I consider it my favorite, because it was that first real rush of seeing a movie through his eyes, because Chungking is also when that visual aspect instantly revs up, and it fully continues through Fallen Angels, two of the most colorful movies that are just simply live action, not like hyper stylized in terms of set design like Wes Anderson. It's purely in the color grading and the lighting. Like, that's it. The set design, it is a factor of the colors, of course, but it's not like to the extent that everything is a dollhouse like in a lot of Wes Anderson pictures. Not that that's bad either. I fucking love the colors of Wes Anderson pictures. Just simply describing how these are both two different kinds of some of the most colorful movies ever made. So there's also that aspect. Like, if you just like movies that look good, you should watch Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, and Happy Together. More specifically, Happy Together, the theatrical cut, but we will get there. I think that Fallen Angels is so fucking cool. The editing is so sharp. The first, like 17 seconds of this movie, like, you just get a little bit of dialogue, and then there's a fucking sick beat that cues in the title card, and it's just like, I'm in. I am sold for whatever the hell is gonna happen in the rest of this movie. And, you know, because, you know, now going back, tying a thread to the last conversation, it was originally attached to Fallen Angels in that, Fallen Angels was originally going to be the third film within Chungking Express, but it was taken out so the Chungking films and stories could grow within the film, and the story of Fallen Angels could really grow as its own film. And with that, you know, it also allows for sub-stories to more easily exist within this story. But there's also this funny, very hard to pull off mood in the film where it's like it is Fallen Angels, it feels like it's almost a dark satire of Wong Kar-wai's previous film Chungking Express, which is very funny, and like to the point where like this almost parody over satire, because there's parts where it's just blatantly making fun of Chungking rather than just making light of certain things, you know. But it doesn't feel like a slap in the face. It doesn't feel like Wong Kar saying "fuck you" for liking my last movie. You know, it feels like a guy who's modest, a guy who isn't afraid to crack some jokes at himself, and because of that, the movie just comes off even fucking cooler than it already is. And Fallen Angels is like one of the coolest movies. You know, it is a movie that lives up to that word. It is cool. It's sleek. I really, really like it. Obviously. Another one, you know, great batch of performances. The Chungking characters, I feel very attached to. I equally feel very attached to these characters in Fallen Angels. Particularly the characters that I get the most joy out of watching. Let's see. I mean, so you have, oh damn. I mean, there is the main sort of pretty much anything that Takeshi is dealing with in this film, aka Ho Chi Mo is the character's name. Anyone that he's around, it's usually just hilarious. But then the people that you know you actually want to see him end up with, and the way things conclude in the end, it's just so fucking perfect. Ends on such a great note, and it
punches you with that bittersweetness way more than Chungking did. Chungking has a melancholia, but this film is melancholy. Fallen Angels, it just flat out, it's leaning on that bitter real strong. And as much as I really, there's a lot that I could talk about this film, getting into the details, but I won't, because I want you to see it. It's fucking awesome. This may be the one that I recommend the most strongly, because I just feel like it would have the best reception based on the people that I know. So, that brings us to the third part of this little trilogy within the Wong Kar works that I'm discussing, starting with Chungking, once again, Chungking to Fallen to Happy Together, which is another one of the best, looking films ever, even this newer version. Now, the biggest differences between the two versions here are quite stark. Again, I don't think it's a footage thing. But the print of Fallen Angels, I learned recently, was burned like the original, the actual film, but only to a degree that it lost the color grading, but not really much else. And the more simplistic kind of real life look of Happy Together when I first saw it, again, it was the newer version, so they couldn't they couldn't color grade it in a different way, but it had such a different look, such a clean look, that Wong Kar liked it enough anyway, and I also thought it was quite beautiful because it's more natural. However, I thought, again, a lot of the intention of Happy Together was to pull back on that color, especially since I think it has the most black and white stuff in it too, so to go from black and white to then just real life, it gives you more of a down-to-earth feel. But the original theatrical version gives me all those Wong Kar-wide colors that I love, and I think this may be the only one where I am still going to pinball it, because I do love that newer version. And it was the one I'm more used to, but the original theatrical version, all those colors. I can't get it up. Happy Together, also I would say, is probably the film out of this batch, especially of this trilogy, where I think I am the most with the characters. I just want to see this thing pan out. I just want to see it work. I want to see them get over their flaws. They're, not a couple based on, weird stalker stuff or something, or just two, very, very blatantly, to a comic degree, toxic people, like in Fallen Angels. Here, there is toxicity, but again, there is just a general naturalism to Fallen Angels that I really love. And even if the journey of Chungking and Fallen Angels, I think I prefer, the ending of Happy Together is on par with the two of them, if not the best. And the two others, the trilogy of movies we have here, three of my favorite endings in any fucking batch of films ever. All three of them just end on the perfect note. And if you watch them in the succession, this trilogy, and you get to the end of Happy Together, you just want to stand up and cheer, actually. And I felt that way every time watching it in my life, across the years, the past few years. And yeah, and it's another one that is so well performed. Happy Together, or I'm sorry, Fallen Angels maybe has my favorite performance of these films, The Mute. There are three key performances, two of them are done by the same actor. The Mute in Fallen Angels, aka the character I was just talking about a moment ago, Ho Chi Mo. But I think the characters that Tony Chow Wai, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, plays in Happy Together, as well as the author in The Mood for Love in 2046. I think those are definitely my favorite characters he's played, especially this film, Happy Together. I also think he's very fun as the aloof cop in Chungking, but you get the least amount of time with him. And in the author series, in The Mood for Love and 2046, the flaws of that character is part of what's kind of endearing about him. Same as here, but I think in The Mood for Love and those films, the turmoil is more that he keeps kind of letting his flaws get in the way of his life. Happy Together, it's more of that kind of classic relationship, sort of butting of heads in the moment, and you know that even if like there is a break coming, that things are gonna be all right. That like this is your person, you know, no matter how annoying or you know, like you may be to them or how annoyed you may be of them. There is just like that thing, you know, at the end of the day, this is the person who is there for you, that understands you. And I love that feeling that Happy Together gives. It's, you know, less blatantly sad than Fallen Angels. It still carries the bittersweetness, but it's not like the film Happiness, where it's called Happiness, and you're like, that's one of the most fucked things I've ever seen in my life. Happy Together, it gives you a great satisfaction, I gotta say. I love it. I think it is, as well as the rest of this trilogy, some of the best films of the 90s, easy. Some of the best Hong Kong films I've seen, although I'm not an expert yet. Haven't seen many, but he's certainly my favorite Hong Kong filmmaker. And again, just one of my favorite filmmakers ever. And for a while, these 3 films alone were what did it. But then I saw Days of Being Wild, and then I saw this next trilogy that I am about to discuss. So please check out those films that I've talked about, and also check out these films. We are now going to discuss the book trilogy. I don't know what either of these trilogies are called, but they're very definitively 2 different trilogies here. We talked about one standalone feature in the beginning, and then we have Wong Kar-wai's World of Love, and then, I don't know, his World of Literature. I don't know. And then he's got like almost an action movie trilogy. It's a duology. So there's also that. And I will make a video about those at some point. But not yet. Not yet. Or at least not Ashes of Time. I may watch The Grandmaster before wrapping. aka before it gets taken off of Criterion Channel. Maybe. So yes, without further ado, here is the second trilogy of Love from Wong Kar-wai.
So here we are in the mood for love, and this literature trilogy, and, you know, everyone has pretty much spoken their piece on this one already. This seems to be the one everyone likes the most. It kind of is a toss-up between this and Chungking, and I can see why. My first time watching it, it didn't hit as much because, you know, Chungking through Happy Together were my first films of Wong, so I love the abrasive, wacky visual style. And In the Mood for Love is very purposefully, intentionally restrained, and that, you know, I do think is good for the film. It's strong for the film. It represents a lot of what the film stands for and is about. You know, it makes me, you know, it originally made me lean towards the others, but then just rewatching it again, there just at some point within the middle of the film, just kind of sitting with The two leads kind of, the slowly letting their guards down. Just something about it also made me set my own guards down. And I really started falling in love with In the Mood for Love. The performances are great. A lot of interesting shorts that surround it too. I did more of a general deep dive on In the Mood for Love the second time watching it when I originally prepared this podcast episode, and I just found myself way more engrossed with the characters. I do love how I guess it's still the main way it feels the most similar is that it kind of just slips in and out of these characters' lives in the same ways a lot of these characters literally do to each other. Like, I love how it just kind of starts in in a way where I feel like a lot of movies would just, I don't know, be more bombastic, but it just kind of gracefully begins. It really eases you into the characters in the world, but very quickly gets going. There's not really a lot of fat, even though it's a very simple film. Rides that balance incredibly nicely. And yeah, no, another great Maggie Chung role. Love her, as I spoke about previously. But I love that this film, the story here kind of carries on more, which, is part of why I think these are two kind of distinct trilogies, because there is kind of a continuity between these sections of films. Very powerful ending too, of course. Fucking awesome ending. Love it. And that's kind of when that camera work just, sort of peaks out. It's nothing wild, but you just get more of the visual awe, with just light and color and everything that Wong Kar-wai plays with so well. I did also watch the alternative version, which is the, essentially it's the only one out of these where the color is restrained. The other alternative versions kind of pop a little more in their original colors, whereas these new versions, maybe they add some more color, but like the Happy Together one, because of the loss of color, it comes off a little more dull. And something about, even though the colors are technically retained in Chungking and Fallen Angels, the consistent green makes the color palette, I guess, less dynamic throughout, but I still like pretty much all the versions of those previous films. And I like both versions of this one, but because we don't really get the Wong Kar-wai, wacky style or anything, I kind of prefer the Geen version because it just gives you some Wong Kar-wai Geen. You know what I mean? But again, the restrained version, the more conservative feeling version, so to speak, conservative in a withheld way, not Ben Shapiro way, of course. It suits the film much nicer. But then it does make 2046 a really interesting sequel, because it's still very grounded and not really too wild when we're just kind of sitting with the lead character who continues over from In the Mood for Love, which is very interesting, to have, and it is very Wong Kar-wai, to have the sequel of your most grounded film be kind of the most out there, the most conceptual, with this futuristic world and the crazy kind of Stargate visuals we'll get. It's very interesting. It's the film of his that I have the least experience with, though. It's also the one that's the hardest to find. So unfortunately, I will be saying the least about it here, but because of that, it's arguably the one I'm the most motivated to make a video about. But I do like that, even though the world gets more outlandish, so to speak, that this character and his journey is still very grounded, and we kind of leave in, you know, a similar spot. You know, it feels true to how this man in particular would grow and not grow. And I just respect Wong Kar-wai for, you know, doing a sequel to a movie that has such a bittersweet ending, and not, you know, going like, oh, well, okay, well, now we're gonna do the happy thing because we waited. Like, sometimes that's earned, but I like that he's still like, nah, this guy's life is still it's still kind of sad. I love that. And then The Hand, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but it is one of this dude's books. The author, lead character in both In the Mood for Love and 2046. I think it's one of his books, The Story of the Hand, but maybe not. That's when I mean, I'm pretty sure it is, but yeah, I could be completely wrong, but maybe that's just my own headcanon. 2040 or The Hand, though, is connected to 2046 inherently. Yeah, no, it is the book that he's writing. Yeah, no, I'm just it's that one again. It's a harder one to find, and now it's been a little while since I started this one, so forgive me. But now The Hand, I love. We're now at the freaky film. We're now at the Freaky Friday section of the discussion, because from the start it's like, wow, this is I do enjoy this, but for different reasons than I liked the previous film. But The Hand is still filled. It's a return to. It's the closest we get to the style of the three previous films, Chungking through Happy, but still in that restrained world, that more grounded, grittier world of these past two films. But I do like that it is, you know, also not just a stylistic return, but it is a emotional return to a pretty frantic, strange, kind of hyper-specific relationship. And I really love The Hand. I just absolutely love the journey to take but just the fact that it exists, that it is the story that it is. I love stories that are hyper-specific in the sexuality in them, and just the openness to it, and, you know, not shaming any of these characters, you know, movie, very, very different movies, but just films, say, like something like Crash, the good one from the 90s, not the shitty 2005 one. Cronenberg's Crash comes to mind as like a non-gentle, it is a non-gentle film, but a non-judgmental film in the sexual aspect, despite, you know, plenty of, Crash, more crazy things happening, but still the intro The Hand is, it's certainly a wacky situation. You know, yeah, and The Hand, because it's like the length of an episode of Sopranos or 6 Feet Under. That one, I have seen it about as much as the three starting films. You know, because it's short and it's sexy, so I just pop it on sometimes. You know what I mean? I got it, and I promise not to goon. It is because I just genuinely think that it's great. Again, it has an interesting energy and is kind of a great cap to all of these films because it captures a little bit of energy from each of them, stylistically and tonally, that I think is kind of a great end to the journey, and peaking with the sexual nature of it too. Yeah, and it still leaves a very fun, slightly bittersweet kind of end there. Always such great, fun characters in his stories too, I gotta say. Again, as much as I can get emotionally invested in the Mood for Love and 2046 characters, I do love Wong Kar-wai's wild ass characters. Yeah, and with that, I hope you had a great Valentine's weekend. Please watch Wong Kar-wai now, forever. He really is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. I love him. And I actually have used this as the means for me to rewatch them again. I, admittedly want to get this out in time, at least for this weekend. But I only watch pieces of the Wong Kar-wai films, so I gotta get to it. I gotta rewatch them again. I only watched pieces of them like within the past couple of days. I've seen them before. I'm not a faker. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Hope it was nice and chill. Now it's time for us. Oh, I don't even have a lighter. I was gonna fucking try to rizz you up. But I fucked it up, god damn it. Hold on, wait, this is the best form of rizz. Wait right there. One thing a date always loves is when you tell them to wait. There we go, everybody. We end this off getting candle lit for the sensual holiday. So sensual. Again, truly hope you enjoyed. Please watch his films. For the love of God, this man's Valentine's film. I mean, they're not Valentine's film, but just some of the greatest romance films ever made for my money. Some of the best films ever made, period, for my money. From their era, for their genre. Stylistically, they're off the fucking charts. So beautiful. I can't recommend them enough. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Have a great week. I will see you soon with the Fire Walk with Me discussion. And I think that's it. I definitely am forgetting something, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just a crazy person. All right, guys. Take care. I'm so sleepy.